In this video, I'll be talking about the policies that dictate the use of drugs and alcohol at sea. In particularly, we'll start with recognizing the potentially serious impact of marine incidents, where the Oil Companies International Marine Forum, or OCIMF, and the marine industry in general have over the years developed guidance aimed at encouraging safe ship operations and protection of the environment. Whilst tanker companies have generally operated with strict policies related to drug and alcohol use on board their ships, OCIMF considers it timely that the industry as a whole reassesses the control of drugs and alcohol on board ships. It recommends that shipping companies should have a clearly written policy on drug and alcohol abuse that is easily understood by seafarers as well as shore-based staff. In order to enforce their policies, companies should have rules of conduct and controls in place with the objectives that no seafarer will navigate a ship or operate its onboard equipment whilst impaired by drugs or alcohol. It is recommended that seafarers be subject to testing and screening for drugs and alcohol abuse by means of a combined program of unannounced testing and routine medical examination. The frequency of this unannounced testing should be sufficient so as to serve as an effective deterrent to such abuse. Now at this point of time, I must make it very clear that drugs don't only refer to recreational drugs, but also refers to medicine drugs, because sometimes some seafarers are used to taking medicines which may make them drowsy or unfit for duty. So, however, while some administrations have already established national legislation in this regard, in the absence of national or international requirements, companies should advise seafarers in their employment of the maximum permissible blood alcohol content, or BAC, permitted whilst on board their ships. In this regard, for example, in Australia, Marine Notice 18/2008 dictates some of the drugs and alcohol policies that are applicable to seafarers sailing on Australian registered vessels. So the purpose of this marine notice was to remind seafarers of their responsibility with regard to the consumption of alcohol and the potential effects on performance when prescribed medication and/or over-the-counter drugs are taken. Seafarers, whilst on board a ship, should remain capable at all times of performing any duty which may properly be required of them. This is particularly important on a ship where an emergency may arise at any time requiring action by the crew. As per STCW and its new amendments in Manila 2010, new requirements for the prevention of drug and alcohol restricted the specific limit of blood alcohol level to 0.05% and 0.25 mg per liter of alcohol in the breath. Certain states and companies may have stricter requirements. Seafarers should also note that the offshore industry has developed alcohol policies with a zero blood alcohol level requirements, which means not exceeding a blood alcohol concentration of 0.02 grams per 100 milliliters at all times. Should it be a condition of employment that a seafarer abides by the policy and the policy is breached, the company may take disciplinary action in its own right. At this point, I must stress that if your ships have zero alcohol policy, please do not take the risk of consuming alcohol or drugs on board such ships. If during checks or surprise inspections it is found that you have been consuming alcohol which contravene the policies of the company, you may not only lose job with that particular company, but you may be banned to seek employment for any of the similar ships or similar industry in any other company. A person who has taken or who proposes to take a drug for medical purposes must not go on duty or remain on duty after taking that drug, unless the person has taken reasonable steps to satisfy himself or herself that the drug will not affect or has ceased to affect the person's capacity to perform the duties of his or her position. Or the person has given a declaration to an approved person setting out the circumstances in which the drug was taken or will be taken, and the nature and the quantity of the drug involved, and the time or times at which the drug was taken or will be taken. The master of a ship or offshore installation manager, as appropriate, should also be advised accordingly. If there is any doubt about the likely effects of prescribed medication, a seafarer should seek medical advice before commencing duty. At this point, I must stress that informing the master about the specific drug requirements that you may have is a good idea anyway, because tomorrow if you run out of the drugs, the master or the company can replenish those drugs in an emergency scenario on board your ship. Regarding penalties, the possession or consumption of illegal drugs is a criminal offence under Australian law and could lead to prosecution by various law enforcement bodies. Now, although I am taking the example of Australia here, similar laws are also found in other countries, states and administrations. In Australia, a breach of the Navigation Act 2012 requirements in relation to performing duties while impaired by the influence of alcohol or any other drug is also a criminal offence and penalties are significant. Additionally, AMSA's manager, and in this case AMSA is the regulator, just like you have MMD in India or MSA in Singapore, ship operations and qualifications may take action against the certificate of an Australian certified seafarer if they are unable to properly perform their duties as a result of being impaired by the influence of alcohol or any other drug. If a seafarer is caught under the consumption of alcohol, the AMSA manager may lead or may deal with this situation by cancelling your COC or your certificate of competence or suspending it until specified conditions are met, or even impose restrictions on its use until specified conditions are met. Accordingly, seafarers should be mindful of all the requirements related to drug or alcohol usage and of the penalties that may be imposed if they are found to be in breach of these requirements. I hope this short video was useful for your understanding regarding policies that dictate drug and alcohol use on board ships. Although I have taken the example of the Australian authority here, similar requirements are also placed by other states and administrations. It's a good idea for you to become familiar with your company's policies, your flag state policies, and your owner's policies. Thanks guys, and I'll see you soon with my next video. All the best. Bye.